How movies and sports were designed to traumatize you. Believe me, I know what you're thinking. I love movies. I love sports. It gives me a lot of enjoyment. I mean, I watch movies and sports too, don't get me wrong. But I want to explain something that I think in the back of your mind you already know to be true. And stay with me here for a minute. So, some people say, they love cocaine. Some people are addicted to alcohol and drugs. Now, I'm not saying that movies and TV and sports are the same, but let's look into it a little bit. So, what's the easiest way to control the masses? Now, if you force people to do things, then you're going to get resistance. Every force has a counterforce. But if you, brainwash might be too strong a word, but if you lead people into coming to the conclusion that it's their own idea and have people do the things that you want them to do, then it's game over. And let's talk about that a little bit, because it's intuitive and counterintuitive at the same time. Everybody says, I have my own mind. I'm not going to, be brainwashed. I'm not going to go. Yes and no. I mean, the things that we believe are all, maybe not all, but largely socially conditioned. It's what your parents told you, and your parents learned from what their parents told them. It's what your friends told you. It's what your teachers told you. It's what your friends told you. But even by more and large is what society told you. That's why they call it socialization. And then if society doesn't get the message through, then your employers get it through because they don't hire you if you don't do what's expected. In extreme cases, the police get it through to you. So there's a lot of ways to have control that's both overt and covert. So let's take up movies for a while. You watch enough movies and things start to seem normal. It's the idea of normalization. And this is how people become traumatized without realizing it, because things that are not naturally normal, I'm not saying they're abnormal, but they're not naturally things that we're acclimated to, become normal. Like violence is one. Now, I'm not saying that people that watch a ton of violence become violent, but there is a lot of research that shows that we become sensitized to things, that we just think, it's not only violence, it's all kind of themes. It's what's called memes and narrative. Human beings are storytellers. That's how we evolved from the campfire in prehistoric days, and that's how we live. That's why people love movies. People love that for sports also, because sports is like a narrative and redemption and all the other themes. So what happens is, if you're the 1%, or if you're the 5%, or the 10%, or the 20%, and you want to get your message across, you're not going to be overt. You're not just going to say, vote for Joe Smith. You're going to make a movie where, the character Joe Smith, is very likable because he looks like an everyday person, or he goes through trials, or he helps people, and we have all these myths of the superheroes, and we have, the myths of overcoming triumph and boy meets girl. But within these generic memes and narratives are infiltrated might seem like a strong word, but are infiltrated, different themes like what it means to interact with aliens, what it means, and I'm not saying aliens are going to come here, so that's probably not the best first example, but basically, themes of protest, themes of class warfare, themes of racial relations, themes of gender. Now some people say the media is very liberal, and some people say the media is very conservative in terms of and I don't mean conservative politically, but more conservative in terms of reinforcing entrenched interests. But take any movie, take any TV show, and study it from a sociological and psychological perspective, and you'll see that's a lot there, and it's very reinforcing. And we as human beings are a lot more susceptible to influence. I mean, it's the same with books. If all your books and all your movies and all your TV is, giving you certain messages, which they do, there's no way that you can kind of have an opposing type view. I mean, maybe not impossible, but almost impossible, because your whole context. See, who we are as human beings is dependent upon context. I'm not saying we come into the world a blank slate, because we come in with temperament and predispositions, but and also soul, I believe. But we don't come into the world as nuclear physicists. We're trained to do that. We don't come into the world as mathematicians. We don't come into the world as great philosophers. So basically, what we what we become is what we learn. And what we learn is inculcated, if not infiltrated, by ideas. That's why, like, for example, I'll give you another example in politics. When the conservatives, were losing steam decades ago and they wanted to get back in the game, what did they do? They infiltrated all the universities. They started buying chairmanships, and then the school, like most universities tend to be more liberal, but the Heritage Foundation, others, they wanted to, the Koch brothers, they wanted to be able to create a more level playing field or have greater influence. So they started buying university departments. It's kind of like the drug companies. They sponsor the academic research. So academia and the press. Now the press is always called the fourth estate. But if you look at it in terms of who controls the press? First of all, the press is very concentrated. So you think you have a lot of different ideas, but you really have very few ideas because you have, a few companies that are owned by, you have a large number of companies that are owned by just a few people. Who are these people? Like these people that own the media companies are some of the richest people in the world. Are they going to be promoting through their TV and their movies ideas that really, promulgate the middle class and the poor? Or are they, if they could, why do they want to control the media? Why do people want to control the media? Think about that for a second. Now let's talk about sports. Now sports, and let's talk about TV in general. Like not everybody that drinks gets addicted to alcohol. Some people are kind of like casual drinkers, but some people that do drink get addicted to alcohol. It's the same thing with TV. I'm not saying you can't turn off your TV, but some people that watch TV, it's like they live their life around the TV. It's like they just become like couch potatoes. Some people are the same with video games. Like video games can be very helpful and build a lot of imagination and skills, but some people get addicted to video games. Some people even get addicted to movies. So, it's like anything can be like thought-provoking or, in an extreme, it can be kind of like, it can make you think more or you can make you think less. Now, some people think that like TV is kind of like dumbed down our generations because, before they had TV, well, they had radio, but before they had TV, people had to have more face-to-face discussions with each other. People had to read more books. So it's kind of more like a long thought form. In TV, there's no interaction really. It's just everything is fed to you. So, people are kind of dumbed down by TV. I'm not saying you can't learn a lot from TV also, but when you're in a medium where you're just passive and everything is being given to you, that's when you can be indoctrinated. You can be indoctrinated when like you're just a passive person taking in. And there's nothing in TV that forces you to think for yourself. It just does your thinking for you. Now, sports, let me tell you something else. If we didn't have sports, we might have riots in the streets. Because sports is kind of like a sugar pill or a placebo. I mean, I love sports. I've always been a big sports fan. But people get so into sports and so into movies and gaming that they forget their problems. And that's the whole idea of it. Like, you're not going to protest in the streets if you want to spend all your time watching sports. You're not going to protest in the streets if you want to watch all your time. So it's kind of like some special interests, and you may or may not agree with this, but perhaps they want to take all the money or most of the money, and they want to give you scraps. Your scraps are your sports. Your scraps are your TV. We're going to take all the money, and you're going to be left with football. We're going to take all the money, and you're going to be left with movies. How do you like it now?